Yamazaki and I left the following morning, and we had come to my home in the outskirts of Edo.
ここが君の家だな。
I hadn't seen it in years, but I didn't have the time for nostalgia. Nerves made me tense and jumpy. Would we even find anything? The first thing we came in contact with was the stale, dust-filled air wafting to us, and I couldn't help but cough. The floor was covered in a layer of dust so thick, it almost reminded me of a fresh blanket of snow. Yeah.
長い間、人の出入りがなかった様子だな。
Which meant my father hadn't returned. I felt both disappointment and relief well up within me. If he wasn't here, then where could he be?
雪村君、羅刹の資料がある場所の見当はつくか？
Hi. I think they're around here somewhere.
わかった。それでは手分けして探すことにしよう。
We spent the better part of several hours looking through every nook and cranny of the dust-covered house for a potential clue for the Furies. Eventually, it seemed as though Yamazaki came across something, and he exclaimed in horror. Horror!
なんだと？羅刹の力の源は。
If this part is what I think it is, because I haven't played this before, did they add it specifically for this, or was it in the original, I wonder? Well, we're about to find out. Hearing him read the notes aloud made me shiver as the hair along my arms stood up. Yamazaki, what did you find?
落ち水は飲んだものの肉体を活性化させ、野生の獣を凌駕する体力と比類なき治癒力をもたらす。だがその力の代償はその人間の命そのもの。
Okay, maybe I was wrong.
羅刹の力を使えば使うほどそのものの寿命は削られていく。つまり
I couldn't believe what I was reading in the notes Yamazaki found, and then it seemed to slip from out of my hands to float towards the ground. Using one Fury's powers directly affected their lifespan. So then for Okita's life, it meant... My feet felt numb upon the ground, and as the feeling began to slip away, I almost fainted.
気をしっかり持て、雪村君。我々には絶望している暇などない。
Yamazaki's a fucking rock. Yamazaki snapped me out of it, affecting his voice into a bark that Hijikata-san would have been proud of. You're right. I'm sorry.
他にもまだいくつか資料がある。手分けして確かめることにしよう。羅刹に関する資料はこれで全部だな。
Scanning through page after page of my father's fury research told us far more than we could have anticipated. Those who drank the water of life to become furies were also imbued with beast-like qualities. Qualities that unsurprisingly caused an unprecedented toll on the human body beyond what a normal human could likely withstand. The amount of stress imposed by the serum forces the body to succumb to the terrible bloodlust.
吸血衝動が出てしまうと次第に落ち水の毒が体を蝕んでいく。血を飲まなくては正気を保てなくなり、やがては獣のようになり狂い死ぬか。
All of the information we had gathered presented an even harsher reality than we hoped for. But there was one silver lining. I think I found a set of instructions to concoct a medicine that will suppress the bloodlust. If this works, and we can suppress the bloodlust, I think it'll be enough to help Okita.
しかし調合できるのか。
Reading through the list now, there are some ingredients we will have to prepare, but... Can you help me with this, Yamazaki?
わかった。何でも言ってくれ。
Together, Yamazaki and I followed my father's recipe exactly how it was written on the note. Somehow, we managed to make the medicine. Unfortunately, we hadn't learned anything about how we might heal Okita's wounds. By the time we finished and returned back, the sun had started to set. That took quite a while, huh?
日が沈む前に戻らなくてはな。急ぐぞ。
Yamazaki beckoned me to come forward, and just as I was about to rush out of the house, something akin to a moving specter seemed to come out from nowhere, and it startled me. Yamazaki had only taken a single step when... Oh no! Yamazaki groaned loudly before falling into the floor. Yamazaki! I ran towards him frantically. What? Ah! It's the brat. I stopped dead in my tracks for someone who was near. I couldn't exactly make out the specter because of the sunset's glare, but it was someone whose face was unforgettable. Kaoru, what are you doing here?
どうしてって決まってるじゃないか。可愛い妹の顔を見に来たんだよ。
I clasped my hand around the kodachi on my hip, glaring back at Kaoru's face, whose expression was almost identical to my own.
なんだよ。そんな怖い顔で睨まなくたっていいじゃないか。そんなやつ殺してもよかったけど、殴って気を失わせるだけで済ませてやったんだからさ。ところで、沖田の様子はどう？そろそろ死んだかな？
Stop it! Kaoru's eyebrows shot up and his grin widened.
怒らなくてもいいじゃないか。ただの冗談なんだから。ナセツになったあいつが簡単に死ぬはずないしね。多分死にたいぐらい苦しい思いをしてるだろうけど。
Kaoru! The angrier I got, the wider his smug grin stretched. Even though I knew it would just rile him up, I couldn't stay calm.
沖田もいつまで正気を保っていられるんだろうな。そのうち血を求めて江戸の人間を見境なく切り殺すようになったりして。
No! I won't let that happen to Okita. As long as we have the medicine that Yamazaki and I toiled over, the bloodlust should be suppressed. There was no way Okita would turn into a beast.
お前たちがここに来た理由は察しがつくよ。大方、吸血衝動を抑える方法がないか、行動おじさんの資料を漁りに来たんだろう。だけど、おあいにくさま。あの薬はほんの短い時間しか効かないし、ひどい発作は抑えられない。まさに無駄足ってやつだよね。
I could feel the blood draining from my body. Of course, I knew the medicine was only a temporary solution, but...
いい顔だな。お前のその顔が見たかったんだよ。沖田のこと好きなのか？どうしてもあいつを治してやりたい。
As Kaoru rattled off these condescending questions, he still kept a smug expression on his face.
あいつを助ける方法教えてあげようか。
My eyes grew wide. This came out of nowhere. Was he trying to play a trick on me? He may have been getting a kick out of trying to fluster me, but even if he were trying to get aroused from me, I had to hear what he had to say, so I let him continue. Kaoru luckily wasted no time in speaking up.
鬼の血を与えればいいんだよ。人間をはるかに凌駕する力を持ち、傷が一瞬のうちに治る。羅刹って俺たち鬼の一族に似てると思わないかい？まがいものの羅刹どもに俺たち本物の鬼の血を分けてやれば、もしかしたら落ち水の毒が体から消えるかもしれない。あいつを助けてやれるかもしれないよ。特にお前は東国の鬼を代表する名家の出なんだからさ。
Togoku, a term referring to the eastern coastal region of Japan. Hey, wait! With that, Kaoru smiled dryly and I called out to him, but he had already disappeared like a shadow into the ether. If what he said was true, then allowing Okita to drink my blood would possibly work as a salve to the water of life's side effects. However, knowing Kaoru, this was all a ploy to get my hopes up. What if, though, what he said was true? Yamazaki regained consciousness, and he slowly gathered himself to gain footing. Are you all right? I ran up to Yamazaki.
俺のことはいい。それより何があったのか説明してくれ。
Sure.
なるほど。南雲薫とやらがそんなことを。ひとまず沖田さんたちのところへ戻ることにするか。松本先生をお待たせしているからな。
Hey. The sun had completely set, and we were covered by the darkness as we rushed to return for Sendagaya. However, the entire time we rushed back, I couldn't quite shake what Kaoru had told me. Once we finally arrived back at the hiding place, we rushed to tell Matsumoto-sensei all that had happened.
なるほど。南雲薫がそんなことを言っていたのか。
Well, what do you think, Matsumoto-sensei? Do you think if I were to give him my blood that we could curb the effects of the water of life?
信じるのは危険だ。そもそも沖田さんを羅刹に変えたのはあの南雲薫だろう。
山崎君の言う通りだな。そんな例は今までに一つもない。効き目がないだけで済めばいいが、もしかしたら毒となることだって十分に考えられるんだぞ。ひとまず薬は調合できたんだろう。なら当分はそれでしのぐしかないんじゃないか。
And what about Okita?
わかってる。しかし酷な話だな。老害にかかっただけじゃなく、羅刹となったせいで残りの寿命をますます削る羽目になるなんて因果な話もあったもんだ。もう少しここにいてやりたいが、私もそろそろ戻らんとな。
Oh, right. Thank you for all of the time you've given us.
いや、くれぐれも無茶はせんよう、沖田君によく言い聞かせておいてくれ。君も疲れているだろう。今日は早めに休むんだぞ。
外までお送りします。いろいろとお聞きしたいこともありますので。
Matsumoto-sensei bowed politely, and Yamazaki escorted him to the entrance. He told me I needed to make sure I rest, but honestly, I don't think I could sleep even if I went to my room with a warm cup of tea. My mind completely jumped to Okita. In Father's notes, It said that a Fury's power was directly tied to the length of their lifespan. If that were the case, then he was literally consuming his own life just to heal himself from flesh wounds. I wanted so badly to check on him, even for a second. I was careful to avoid making any peep or noises, and I quietly slid his door open. Huh? I couldn't believe it. Okita wasn't sleeping in his futon, and it was nowhere to be found. Where could he possibly have gone? Just as I scanned the room...
おかえり、千鶴ちゃん。
The voice came from next to the door. The fuck you doing up? Oops. Okita, what are you doing?
だって寝てるだけなんて退屈だし。
Okita sneered in his usual derisive tone. Okita, did you happen to hear any of the conversation we had in the hallway? Man was sitting right next to the fucking door.
自分のことについてこそこそ話してたら誰でも気になるでしょ、普通。
While the length of Okita's remaining lifespan was a source of concern, thankfully his sardonic wit was intact. Unfortunately, he didn't budge, and his attempt to probe me for answers made me uncomfortable.
ま、あの時落ち水を飲んでなかったらどっちにせよ死んでただろうしね。布団の上で血を吐きながら死ぬのと、こうして刀を取ることができるようになったのと、どっちがマシかって言えば答えなんて分かりきってるし。
There was a peaceful twinkle in his eye, as if he had come to terms with his condition and his future. Such certainty felt so unfamiliar to me.
でも不思議な話だよね。病気でも何でもなかった源さんが鳥羽伏見の戦で死んじゃったのに、老害にかかってる上、落ち水まで飲んだ僕がこうして生きてるなんて、運がいいのか悪いのかわからないな。
Okita. My heart clenched. He seemed to embrace the fact that his health was wilting, and yet he stood courageously before it. Perhaps it was this attitude all along that had me so curiously drawn to him. Please don't give up. You are still alive, Okita. Even if he seemed resigned to the fact that he could potentially die in the near future, I didn't want him going anywhere.
当たり前じゃない。僕にはまだしなきゃならないことがあるんだから。
His complexion still seemed very ill. But even then, Okita possessed within him a fiery vigor. Good. The future was still uncertain, but so long as Okita believed in himself, there was hope. Although we couldn't see into the future, he did nothing to waver his spirit from the dawn of a better day. Okita, please return to your bed. It's not good for you to be standing for too long.
はいはい、わかってるよ。君ってほんとうるさいんだから。
Just as he began to whine, Okita kneeled over and his face twisted in pain. He slammed against the floor as he gasped for air. Okita? I rushed to support his body as he had trouble staying upright. What's wrong? Is it your injuries? Okita shook his head as he grimaced loudly from whatever had been hurting him. As I watched, his hair turned white and his eyes turned red. Oh no. He had experiencing some minor pains from using his powers before, but I don't ever recall him becoming a fury without using those powers consciously. And it must mean...
平気だよ。すぐに収まるから。
The way he angrily mentioned for me to stay back told me this wasn't the first time he was changing. He almost seemed ready to accept what came next. Okita, to you. Was this seizure-like episode a symptom of being a fury? Do you want my blood? His eyes grew wide.
欲しくなんかない。
His reply was practically a shout, but all the reason to assume that's what he wanted.
僕は嫌だ。嫌なんだよ。血なんていらない。狂いたくない。
His voice shook as he spoke. Whether from pain, fear, or both, I couldn't tell. Both of us saw plenty of Furies go mad with bloodlust. But you're in so much pain.
もし理性を失ったら、自分を保てなくなったら、近藤さんの役に立てなくなる。
Okita had drunk the water of life to make him a more effective soldier. All he wanted to do was to help Kondo-san. If he lost himself in the bloodlust, he would be denied that one desire. So, how long have you been doing this? How horrible. To be all alone, tormented by pain so great that even breathing was agony.
平気だよ。我慢できる。僕は近藤さんの弟弟子なんだから。こんなものに負けるほど弱くない。
He seemed to think you could endure through sheer force of will. But you don't look fine at all. I could hear my voice break, and tears had begun to well up in my eyes. I wrapped my arms around Okita and held him tight. What was I going to do? Well, if we've learned anything from Nagakura's run, the obvious answer to get the very good ending is to give him blood. If I remembered what Kaoru said correctly, by making Okita drink demon's blood, we may be able to undo some of the symptoms that came with drinking the water of life. Matsumoto-sensei, on the other hand, had his doubts. But I don't have the luxury of choosing my methods. I drew out my kodachi and put it to my wrist. There was a brief moment of pain, and then a line of blood welled up along the cut.
千鶴ちゃん、何を?
Please, drink this. I held out my arm to him, and his eyes widened. By the time my arm reached him, the cut had already closed, but the blood still sat there on top of the smooth skin. I heard that my blood could counteract the poison of the water of life. Maybe he was influenced by the scent of blood. His eyes showed signs of famine. I don't know if what Kaoru told me was true, but if I could, even for a moment, be able to quench his thirst, I just want to help you. So please. He said nothing as he moved his face towards the blood shining on my arm. When he was close enough that I could feel his breath brushing across... I need to read that again. When he was close enough that I could feel his breath brushing across my arm. My skin. Fuck. His mouth opened, and he ran his tongue across my arm. The vigor behind the movements of his mouth made for a tingling sensation, taking with it my blood. His voice was low and almost embarrassed. I blinked in surprise. I could never recall a moment where I'd heard his voice speak so weakly. I shook my head. There's nothing for you to apologize for.
でもごめん。
He looked down at the floor, his face strained. It almost looked as though he'd been scolded by Kondo-san. Although he was still pale, it looked as though the bloodlust had subsided. His hair and eyes returned to their normal color. You really should rest now. That would be the best way for you to recover.
分かってる。ごめんね。いろいろと。
I just told you that you have nothing to apologize for, didn't I?
そうだね。それじゃあ、おやすみ。
Okita nodded obediently, and he crawled back under his covers. Oyasumi, Okita. Please don't hesitate to call for me if you need anything. I could see how much pain he was in, and my heart went out to him. He clearly expressed that he didn't want to drink any blood, but at least his suffering has subsided, even if it were just a little bit. I was left to ponder the possibility, could we truly cure the curse of the Fury with my blood? For now, my only option was to monitor his progress, but the next day, Okita seemed to be healing at a much more rapid pace. Oh shit, it worked. I didn't know what Kaoru's intentions were, but for now, I'm going to just be thankful of Okita's recovery.